Alex, growing up in the hood of Oakland, to then becoming a doctor, to then owning multiple successful businesses, and also being a real estate investor.
Yeah.
How in the world did this all happen, and where did it all start?
Well, I'll tell you, growing up in Oakland was not the easiest. You knew of people who were in gangs. I never got into a gang, but I knew a lot of people who were in one, because growing up, you can't just be a lone wolf, and you'll definitely get picked up on or get picked on one way or another. I think growing up there was more like survival mode. I remember in junior high where fights were breaking out between different gangs. My friends and I will all have baseball bats to school. We'll walk to school with a metal baseball bat. Each of us will have one. When teachers ask us why we have one, we're like, yeah, we got softball and we like using our own bats. We bring it to school, we walk home with it, just in case. So a lot of it was survival mode at the time. Growing up, I'll tell you this, I grew up in a lower class family. Mom and dad combined made no more than about $60,000. I saw that because when we were applying for college loans, there were certain loans we didn't qualify for. I didn't know how much $60,000 was. At the time, I thought that was a lot. The problem was, growing up, my parents will always argue about money. And what I mean by that is my father had no clue about finances. He would work, give his paycheck to my mom, and my mom will handle the whole household. But because my father did not understand how finances work or how much money we had, he would go to Home Depot, randomly buy a drill, right? That was $100 to $200. My mom flipped out. And everything was about money, right? It was arguing about, we don't have enough of this, how are we going to pay for that? And I thought $60,000 was pretty good. But because they were arguing so much, I didn't even want to be home. Once I knew how to drive, I would go hang out at a friend's house, do projects and whatnot. I don't come home until about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. When I went to college, I didn't know what studying was, but I knew one thing. When I was in college, I knew whatever I was going to do, I wanted to make sure that my future spouse and I was not going to argue about money. We can argue about anything else, but it's not going to be about money, right? So I had the choice of, at the time, business or health. And I chose health, studying health. But it was in about 2004 when my mom suffered from trigeminal neuralgia for 2 years. And medication she took, Botox shots, cortisone shots. I felt helpless because nothing could help. And a natural doctor and a chiropractor helped her. So that's how I ended up going to chiropractic school, because if he was able to help her, I knew there was a lot of people out there that needed my help. It didn't completely kill the business side of things, right? Being a doctor, went from a medical doctor to a chiropractor, it's the best of both worlds. You get to own your own practice and become a doctor. I felt like I was in heaven. I hit the jackpot. I get to do what I love to do, helping people, and I get to run my own business, which gave me control, right? And that's ultimately how we got to where we are today. It's the fear of getting back into like where my mom and father's position is, that I want to get as far away from that as possible financially. I think a lot of that is the motivation for where I am today.
You certainly have a lot of motivation, and you've certainly gone a far ways from it. I know you have a podcast now called Life by Design.
Yeah.
And it seems like you have created exactly that for yourself, but not everyone always thinks through that vision. A lot of people are successfully driven from fear. How did you create that vision for your life that you ultimately built?
This is a vision that Helen and I both wanted. When a few years ago, I heard from mentors that you can really live where you want to live and still have the business operating somewhere else. I started asking her, I said, if you could live anywhere, where would you want to live? And eventually we purchased our home in one of our best destinations, dream place that we love being at. But also is learning about each other, the love language, right? The 5 love languages. For her, it's time. And time for her, it's so important where it wouldn't make sense for me to be working 80 hours to 100 hours a week. I wouldn't have a relationship if I did that. It's how do I leverage other people's time to buy me time with my family? Ultimately, that's what having a business is all about. You've got to have people. And to have the right people, you're leveraging, you get an opportunity. Here's where I think a lot of business owners get it wrong. Most business owners believe that, hey, if I pay you for 8 hours a day, your time is mine, right? Now I can get you to do whatever I need you to do. They could treat you like crap. But what it really is that when someone is willing to work for you, trade their time for money, it's a privilege, right? You get to utilizing finances, right, to have someone else's time work for you. That's a huge, huge privilege. Even those of you who have 1, 2 employees, or those who have 50 to 100 or more employees, you have to think about it like that. So you can't treat people like crap. That's one thing I realized being a business owner. You got to get people to buy into what you're doing as well. It's not just you telling people what to do, but it's having the buy-in. And that's where in our company we talk about the personal, professional, financial goals for our staff and also for our virtual assistants as well. We call it the PPFs, personal, professional, financial goals that we talk about among all of our employees, so that we're all on the same page. Because if they're willing to take their time and drive my mission, vision, and core values and work within our company, I have an obligation and responsibility to make sure that their goals, dreams, and needs are met as well.
Yeah, and I think you have an incredible skill set of a visionary, and I think you're using your gifts that you've been given to help not only yourself and your family, but also your employees. Right. And the culture that you've developed is incredible with the check-ins that you have in order to do just that. And so it's a win-win for both employee and business owner, and that's how it should be.
That is how it should be.
Which ultimately then allows you to have a life by design where you are now not having to be fearful about money. Right? And then also be able to spend the quality time that you've identified is how you can serve your wife most.
You're right about that. And you mentioned not having the fearful of money. I don't know if that's 100% correct. Because although we are more financially set than we were 10 years ago, one thing that still is in the back of my mind, it's like, what if something happens? I don't know if it's healthy or not. It's the fear of that, what my childhood life was like, continues to drive me forward. It's keeping me propelling forward and doing what we do. We have 40 virtual assistants right now. Our goal is to scale to 100 by June, right? We have one really well functional medical practice right now. Possibility is to have a second one, right? Where people ask me this, and here's where the limiting belief mindset people will ask, Alex, you seem like you're doing all right. Why do you continue to go so hard?
Yeah.
Right? I asked them this. I said, why is it? Because I can tell them about the fears and why am I driving and pushing so hard, right? I want to provide for my family. I want to set them up to be the best potential way that they can. I have one daughter, right? And in my opinion, there's probably not going to be a chance that I'll spend everything that I have, right? Which means that a good chunk of it will be for her. But for the people who are asking that question to your family or friends or peers who you see pushing so hard, I would ask them this. What makes you feel like where you are right now is where you want to be for the rest of your life? What's stopping you from moving forward? Right? You're like a parked car.
Powerful.
I'm trying to drive forward, but you're asking me why I'm going forward and you're parked. Right? What happens when you leave a parked car in the same place for too long? What happens, Wyatt?
It breaks down.
Breaks down. Things start to rust. Even the car lock stops functioning because it's been sitting there. You leave that car there and it's not running. It's going to start slowly failing. So I rather continue to drive forward, okay, and not sit in the same place. I don't want to be a parked car.
Yeah. You're a well-oiled machine.
Well-oiled machine. That's what we got to do.
That's powerful. And because of all of that, you're able to help people achieve a vision and build a life by design with an incredible family life. So
Right.
Thanks for sharing. That's incredibly powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.